We have a challenge for you. Are you a fan of anime? Do you think you know your stuff? Then step right up and attempt the Anime Rectangle. Better name pending. This is the rectangle. The aim of the game is to fill each square, but there are rules, you see. The top left corner here is the demographic. So, for this rectangle, all anime must fall under the shonen demographic. The y-axis here is the period of time the anime must fall into. The x-axis here is the category. So for example, this square here is an action shonen starting pre the year 2000. An anime that would fit this square would be One Piece, with the anime starting in 1999. Seems simple, right?
But not for long!
We have more rules. The year is the year the series started airing, so no counting Attack on Titan the final season for 2020s when the series started in 2013. It also must be an anime. If you want to do a manga version, that's fine, but this one is for anime. You can also only have one anime per property, so no Digimon and then Digimon Tamers for a different square. Historical and future are from the perspective of the anime, so for example an anime with a 2010 setting counts as historical for an anime from 2026, but future for an anime from 1996. The last rule is what makes this hard. This isn't necessarily a knowledge challenge, it's a challenge of your viewing habits. So you have to have watched at least in part every anime you put on this rectangle. Could be just an episode and then you dropped it, but this is to test your anime experience, not your anime knowledge. We created a rectangle for each of the 4 major demographics. Filling out the rectangle should help show you your anime blind spots. We also have the advantage of being 2 people, but it didn't help as much as you'd think. We are also basically the same person, so if you have some sort of conjoined anime twin, then you can do it with them too. Right, now that's all out of the way, let's get on with it and attempt this thing ourselves. First up, we have the Shounen Rectangle I showed earlier. I assumed this one would be the easiest, considering there's more shonen than any other demographic, making up about half of the applicable anime. First, let's look at the action column. For pre-2000s, we have the anime Trigun. Vash the Stampede is an anime icon if you haven't seen it. This will mean we can't use Trigun Stampede for 2020s. Next, for the 2000s, we have Claymore. It has women and big swords, so what's not to like? For 2010s, we have Assassination Classroom, and for 2020s, we have Peach Boy Riverside. We wanted to pick less common anime where we could. This stopped pretty quickly because these get quite hard. For romance, we have Ranma 1/2, Rosario Vampire, Tsurezure Children, and Horimiya. I like how this column starts very harem heavy and then ends up in a more modern style of shonen romance. It's a genre that fairly consistently gets new shows, and it's a good way to experience anime that are about interpersonal connections. For historical, we struggled finding a pre-2000s anime that we had actually watched, so ended up defaulting to an anime we watched for our pre-Tezuka history video, Hakujaden. This is also why the time frames are what they are. Pre-2000s gives you a pretty big chunk of time, but there was considerably less anime. Then we have 3 decades, with our current one being the shortest but the most dense. From there it was easier with Black Butler. Even though it has more recent seasons, it counts as starting in 2008. Then we have Magi the Labyrinth of Magic, an anime that deserves way more seasons, and is a little cheeky because it's more fantasy, but it's got Arabian Nights influence, and if we're counting Black Butler as historical, then this is reasonable too. If you can explain your reasoning for a pick well enough, then it counts. This isn't a serious thing, it's a way to flex your anime watching muscles. Lastly, for history, we have Moriarty the Patriot, an anime I really need to watch more of. The future column is the hardest for us as we don't watch that much sci-fi anime, but we did manage to fill this one with Outlaw Star, Aria the Animation, Dead Man Wonderland on a technicality because of this sci-fi phone, and Kaiju number 8 that is in fact set in the near future. Not all anime go out of their way to establish the specific year they're set in, but you can generally guess. The main issue with future as a setting is that not all sci-fi is futuristic. Some are set in modern day with futuristic elements such as Darwin's Game or Level E. The reason this is future and not sci-fi is to try to push you to think outside of anime set in modern day Japan. Equally historical is the same, but in the opposite direction. Shonen being the most popular and profitable demographic means there's a good chance you've watched enough shonen to fill this rectangle. If you haven't, I'd assume you either have some niche tastes, or you just have a lot more to experience. The next 3 are harder, and I say this as a huge shoujo and josei fan. Speaking of shoujo, Shoujo is our first rectangle with gaps. For action, we have Kamikaze Kaito Janne, Shugo Chara, Yona of the Dawn, and Red River, an anime airing this season. There are some really good shoujo action anime. Romance should be even easier. We have Kodomo no Omocha or Kodacha, a great anime if you haven't watched it, and another I wish had more episodes. 2000s was easy, we went with Ouran High School Host Club. That is, by the way, 20 years old now, just to make a section of the people watching this feel really old. Then we have Maid-sama and Taman's B-side. Romance is the genre most associated with shoujo, but it isn't all it has, nor does it make shoujo romances less worth watching. In the same way that shonen is predominantly associated with action, it doesn't make its action less worth watching. As we keep bringing up, this is really about your breadth of anime experience. If you only manage to fill out certain parts of the rectangle, you may discover you're just a romance fan or a josei fan, and not an overall anime fan. We both pride ourselves on being more old school weebs where all anime is appealing. Kids these days are so lucky to be able to have more specific tastes in anime, but that can also be limiting. Hence, the rectangle. Shoujo Historical is the first section we couldn't fill. There are plenty of pre-2000s historical shoujo like Fushingi Yugi and The Rose of Versailles, but we haven't actually seen them yet. That's good to know, historical anime is a gap in my knowledge. I have, however, seen some more recent historical shoujo, like the 2008 Earl and Fairy, the 2015 Snow White with the Red Hair, and the 2022 Requiem for the Rose King. Future shoujo is a huge gap for us, with only Ju-O-Sei for this column. I would like to argue that dramatical murder counts as shoujo and a future setting. The future setting is explicit, but the shoujo is a bit trickier. Anime demographics come purely from manga publishing. If it's an adaptation of something that isn't manga, such as a visual novel, then it won't get anything assigned to it. Equally, if it's an anime original, it will have no labeled demographic. This doesn't mean it isn't aiming for a specific group though. For instance, as a yaoi, it's relatively safe to assume that dramatical murder is aimed at women. And while the visual novel is aimed at an 18+ audience, the anime toned it down to a 13+. Thus, we can assume that they wanted a more general female audience. Thus, it could be vaguely considered shoujo.
That's just a theory. A gay theory.
I've been queer the whole time.
This is a good point to remind you that while there are only 543 shoujo anime listed on MAL, there are 8,872 shoujo manga. So if you're a manga reader, this exercise might be easier. Maybe we will retry this with manga sometime. I feel like it'll be easier because reading manga feels less intimidating than starting a new anime. This video was sponsored by The Thieves Who Stole From Death, a webcomic and physical manga by LOD Doe. Everyone is used to sponsorship spots in videos, so why not use them to promote other artists? This copy was given to me like a year ago, and it's about time I return the favor. The Thieves Who Stole From Death is a supernatural mystery story set in Victorian Bath. There is magic and murder, and so far it's got me intrigued. It's a small little thing, but I really love it when a manga uses something other than the word chapter. In this case, each one is a note. Very apt, since the main character is a researcher. The world is a refreshing mix of real history colliding with fantasy elements, and I'm excited to see where the mystery is going, as well as learn more about this magical world. There are currently 14 chapters out, but each one is pretty long. You can read it officially on Webtoon Canvas and Manga Plus Creators, or alternatively, buy volume 1 and 2 on the LOD Doe Etsy. Check it out.
Up next, we have Seinen. Action should be very easy with this one. We went for Initial D, but just in case that isn't action enough for you, then Berserk also fits in this rectangle. Then we have Rose and Maiden, Bungo Stray Dogs, and The Witch and the Beast. While action is a specific genre, I feel like you could take some liberties with it. The 4 categories are supposed to create very separate points to stretch your anime watching muscles. So, if we consider action more anime with stuff happening and romance as people happening, it might make a bit more sense than anime with fights and anime with people in romantic relationships. If you really have to reach, that either implies you lack much experience with a genre or demographic, but equally, that there just isn't much that has been categorized that way. Romance is also another fairly easy one for seinen, with Maison Ikoku, Sekirei, nobody said romance had to be with only one person, working, and My Dress-Up Darling. Historical is also pretty easy for us. There are a lot of historical seinen I've watched. but annoyingly they're all after the year 2000, so nothing can slot 1. Although, I could in theory count Berserk, and in fact, I will. Initial D can stay where it is, and I'll put Berserk over here. Yippee! This is an example of stretching things a bit. Mal lists 8 seinen historical anime before 2000, and one of those is a Shin-chan movie. Then we have Emma, a Victorian romance, Vinland Saga, and art. To round out seinen, we have the future column. And this is actually the easiest future column for us, because not only does seinen have a lot of the sci-fi anime, but also we've actually seen a fair few future setting seinen. Starting with Yokohama Kaidashi Kiko from the best year, 1998, then Desert Punk, Dimension W, and last season's Snowball Earth. Last, and absolutely not least, we have Josei. I thought we'd watched a lot of Josei, so stood a fair chance. But this was actually quite a challenge on account of there only being 161 Josei anime. In the 2020s, there have been 33. In 5.5 years. That's including OVAs, ONAs, movies, and specials. If we just include full-length TV or ONA series, it drops to 14. Josei anime is disproportionately sidelined, despite there being thousands of manga in the demographic. Thankfully, there are some good shows still being made for women. Let's see if we can fill out the rectangle. First, with action, we have Pet Shop of Horrors. This isn't an action, but a horror mystery. But since it isn't historical, futuristic, or romance, I've decided to put it here. I also only started watching this while working on this script, because by this point it was pretty obvious where we had gaps in our watching habits. This is one that's been on my list to watch for a while, and seeing all of the blank spaces actually pushed me to give it a go. I would like to go on record and say I don't deliberately avoid watching Josei anime, I avoid watching anime in general. I like manga, the moving pictures scare me.
You say that like we don't watch more anime than your average person. It's just that the amount of manga you read is Herculean.
Then we have 07 Ghost and nothing for the last space. Honestly, if you actually manage to fill this rectangle out, you'll have watched 10% of all Josei anime. For romance, again, the first section is blank. But after that, we have an all-time classic Honey and Clover, then Uta no Prince Summer, and lastly, Bibliophile Princess. For historical, I'm cheating a little bit and using another movie, but only Yesterday kinda counts. Then we have Sayuki and Kids on the Slope. The TV special Cocoon came out this year and follows the teenage girls who were drafted as nurses during World War II. That's the only applicable one, and neither of us have seen it. For future, we have nothing. I couldn't think of a single one. So, if you know any good sci-fi Josei, then let me know, because I'm drawing a blank. I even learned that if you search for something on my anime list and there's only one applicable result, it just takes you to that entry. I thought it was glitching out at first. We talk about it a lot on this channel, but while it would be nice if all things were for all people, at the end of the day, people have different wants from their media, making demographics so important. Women are largely seen as not desiring anime, despite making up a huge amount of the anime viewing audience. Plus, anytime something is for everyone, it actually ends up averaging out to being aimed at young men, despite any facts or figures proving women are willing to spend money on their hobbies. Speaking of women spending money, are you a woman? Do you have money? Did you know?
Money makes life happy!
Who knew it would end like this? With us talking about demographics yet again. I feel like the general consensus online is that they are irrelevant, but that couldn't be further from the truth. The more we think and discuss it, the more clear that becomes. But now that we have finally been through all of the weeb rectangles, next it's your turn. Give it a go yourself. If you do make a video or post of you attempting the challenge, then absolutely tag us. I want to see what super obvious anime we missed. Also, as part of this video, we thought it would be fun to challenge other YouTubers to attempt the challenge themselves, and make their own videos. So, without further ado, we, Merry Kiwi, challenge Dark Violet Cloud, the OVA Hell Podcast, Kamen Rider Lambda, and my wildcard, Trixie the Golden Witch. It would be like super cool if you challenged other people at the end of your videos, and then it became a chain of people testing their watching habits. If you know anyone who would want to try this challenge, then feel free to tag them or share this video. Thank you very much for watching, hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and we will see you in the next video. Bye!